Hello everyone, this is Terripper, and today we have an interview for a game that many of you may not know a whole lot about. So hopefully we can fix that, and shed some light on the atmospheric survival game, The Black Death. With a little help from one of the lead developers, known only as Cameron Small, that's a lie, he's also known as Mac in the Steam forums and on Discord. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Mac?
I'm Cameron Small, one of the lead developers here at the Black Death. We are a small team based in Leicester, England, comprising of only about 7 developers. We are multi-rolled, so technically I'm not really a boss. Everyone is. Everyone has their own responsibilities. We all come from different reaches of the industry. So recently I left Rocksteady Studios after creating the Arkham Knight, best game ever.
Sweet.
And the other guys are from TT Games, Creative Assembly, and Codemasters.
Yeah, that's a really awesome pedigree you guys have going on. And it makes sense, given that I'm just going to give a very minute description. The game utilizes a relatively complex, but in development combat system. So it's in my wheelhouse for any of you who think, oh no, Terripper's going to survival games. That's not true. This game is just really, really awesome, and I think it fits me a little bit. At least a little bit. Anyway, I'm super glad to have you here, Cameron. Thank you very much for being with me. And it's absolutely a privilege to have one of the people responsible for my spending 40 plus hours over the last 2 weeks playing this gem. Hope you're proud of yourself. So to get right to it, I'll go ahead and ask the question that I think many viewers are wondering about, especially those who have never heard of this game. What exactly is the Black Death, and how does it compare to games in the same genre like Life is Feudal, or Of Kings and Men, or Reign of Kings?
So, the Black Death primarily is a multiplayer survival game, set in one of the gruelest times known to man. 14th century Europe. The population has 60% death rate. It's really high. The plague is just ravaging the whole world, and it's something that we're trying to simulate. We want to make sure that you don't survive in a survival game. We pride ourselves on the difficulty of it, and also we have a quite unique profession system or class system, as a lot of people would call it. Ranging from being able to play as a beggar to a monk to even a knight. Which will increase your chances of survival. You'll learn new recipes to craft. You'll take part in an economy system driven by players and NPCs. And also, like you mentioned, we have a combat system. It's very medieval. There's swords, there's shields, there's crossbows. So you can go around, killing NPC bandits for their precious loot. That's kind of the whole game in a nutshell. We are a survival game, but we have all the things to offer.
Of course. And how would you compare your game to the likes of Life is Feudal or Of Kings and Men, which I know have been in development for quite a bit longer, depending?
So, what I like to think that separates us from the competition, so to speak, is that we've created a world by hand. We don't have any ugly procedural landscapes. There's no giant, weird, generated player structures, of certain shapes. I won't describe too much. Instead, we like to think we've offered a player to live and die in a world that's carefully created from scratch. And things like Life is Feudal is probably the closest comparison, since the towns built by players are kind of preset. Just for the visual standpoint, it fits the game. Like, we never want to pull the player out of the immersion. Our atmospherics are our most important, part of the game. We don't want like a big silly penis-shaped building. Excuse my French. So we've kind of offered the player a lot of things they can build. It's designed by us, but it's placed by the player. So in that aspect, the Life is Feudal is probably the closest comparison. Kings of Men, our combat used to be quite similar, but we dialed it down to make it a little more simplified, since it's only one of many features within the game, and we didn't want to have too complex to put off new players, because it's quite wanted to be quite pick up and play, and then you learn that the game's quite difficult and layered later on. So, like Reign of Kings, we play that a lot. Obviously, they have the king mechanic. We think it's very close to us at all, actually, although we have a lot of comparisons. We don't have a free building system, but we like to think that we've sold the medieval theme a little bit stronger. Like, the world is built, like we said, it's designed. We like to think the plague has ravaged this place. There's no fantasy aspects. Reign of Kings has like fantasy creatures running around, like their plague victims are like giant monsters, in my opinion. We've kept it quite real to history. So, yeah.
Just to expound upon some of those points, probably the biggest thing that I enjoy from the game is purely the atmospherics. And as you said, that is impossible if you don't hand make the world itself. And that is absolutely the biggest draw of the game, in my opinion, is the fact that if you will never find the same place if you comb the map. From my experience, and I've been almost everywhere on the map in my 50 hours, it's impossible to find the exact same village, the exact same ruin, etc. The player houses, for the moment, seem to be the same, but as you said, also, people can't just make this disgusting looking like work of modern art that completely takes away from the immersion. So someone's passing by and like, oh, what game am I playing? This obviously isn't a medieval title. That doesn't happen to me in your game, basically. So a very good, very broad comparison. Your game just has a bit more color to it, one might say. Yeah.
Yeah, even though the majority is the black.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, but yeah.
Gosh, for lack of a better word, more color to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it's
Yeah.
I mean,
I
even,
agree.
well, even in saying that it's a grim palette, obviously this is slightly off topic, even in saying that it has a grim palette, there are some very beautiful, beautiful places in the game, like just the fields and the mountains. And anyway, I'm proselytizing. So to get slightly beyond just the basics and talk a little bit more about kind of what you mentioned, the most direct comparison in terms of games you can make, Life is Feudal. I've been playing that a little bit recently, just kind of testing the waters. And the main thing that I noticed, while it is not nearly as atmospheric as your game, not nearly as pretty either, given the fact that people can make slanted mountains that are just stupid to look at, its UI and certain elements of its game are very, very well polished and have a very intuitive feel to it. And I know your game is still obviously in early access. It is still in beta, of course. It is still being rigorously tested. But do you guys have plans to streamline the UI, streamline certain aspects of the game to make it a bit more, I guess, easier to approach?
So yeah, Life Steals, I give them like kudos for the amount of customizability they have for the players. Like especially inventory management is absolutely fantastic. We are guilty to try and have control support maybe too early in the game. If you plug in an Xbox controller and you can use it as easy as you could with a mouse and keyboard, and that has affected some of the design aspects we have with the UI. Some things are bigger and larger, like Skyrim-esque. Actually, a lot of our UI is based on some of the best inventory management mods for Skyrim. So we've kind of directly referenced some of the best user-created mods that I've seen. So we tried to make sure the player can craft as quickly as possible and can store and build anything they can without fighting the UI for half an hour. But at the same time, that has come at a cost of making sure we have controller support, like I said.
Certainly. Well, actually, while you're mentioning that, are there any plans at all?
It's very simple, but...
Huh? Yeah, it's very simple, absolutely. While we're talking about controllers, I know someone's going to ask this. Is there any plans at all to bring this game to consoles?
We're talking to people. I can say that.
Okay.
Obviously, we're an early access title.
Yeah.
And getting your game on console is a very rigorous, tested, very well-funded system that has lots of contracts and things to fill out. So I'm not quite sure how far away it is, but we are definitely talking to people. So yeah.
Okay, cool. There's your answer, everyone who was about to type that.
Yeah.
All right, moving a little bit away from the comparisons, let's talk about the game in a little more detail. So you mentioned the professions, or as a lot of people call them, classes, within the game. And for anyone who doesn't know, you have to work your way up from being a beggar to being a peasant, and then you kind of work your way into specializations. Now, when I first played the game, I found... I hesitate to call it a grind, because this doesn't seem like the kind of game where grind is really like the right word. I would say just kind of monotonous labor. Let's go with that. That's basically a grind. Was kind of very common in the beggar class for me. I recall spending about 5 hours fishing, and it was actually really good fun because I had a friend with me and we were just chatting about the game and about stuff. But what kind of plans, going back to just kind of ease of entry for players, what kind of plans do you guys have to maybe make the game a little easier to get the full experience out of, to get past the first stages?
We have realized that people stick to their methods of leveling up quite rigorously, like you said, like the fishing. And we're going to try and open up more avenues and make it more obvious to the player, because there's actually more than 10 ways you can speed up your leveling process if you wanted to. Like fighting combat, but obviously combat comes with great loss and it's great risk. But we're currently actually planning a system that's kind of like a quest system, you could say.
Ooh.
That would, because we have a great NPC population, we thought we might as well use it. We've got conversation trees, so maybe some ways of gathering XP quicker through, risk reward. We're never going to make it easy for you, obviously, because that's where boredom starts to come and set in. But quest system, something for beggars to fast track through that skill tree if you want to. Personally, I feel like we've maybe failed on the beggar's design. If people are so desperate to get out of it, I feel like we need to make the beggar more fun. Firstly, because I love staying as a beggar, even though I've got a night unlocked.
Oh, I know. God.
I think it's a great social experiment.
Yeah.
But we never wanted any class to become void. There's always going to be the class is better at something. It's an ongoing balancing act that we feel that we need to improve on all the time. Not everyone should be the best class. For an example. So yeah, I think quest system. Making sure that beggars are maybe some easier NPCs that the beggars can pick on. For an easy XP reward.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's lots of options in crafting, resource gathering, things like that. Killing other players has a big XP. There's a new feature out right now, actually. If you kill a beggar who's day 5, you'll actually inherit his XP.
Wait,
That's literally just went in. It just went in.
That's super cool. Okay.
Any beggar player. But XP stealing, almost, in a way.
Dang.
So, that's literally just went in off that feedback. So, yeah.
That is really, really cool. Okay, so beggars could feasibly get together and then gang up on a knight or something and take his excess XP. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's just making this more obvious to the player, I think, is the key.
Yeah, I would absolutely say so. At the same time, though, I think the fact that the game doesn't hold your hand is definitely a selling point. I think plenty of people can open up a game like a game like Elder Scrolls Online or any game in that vein. That's a very bad comparison, but any game that has a massive tutorial segment and then keeps you with tutorial quests for another 5 hours and blah blah blah. In your game, it's all right, you're a beggar, you smell like shit, you can't do anything. What do you do? And then
I like to think we've taken a page of the Dark Souls and even the new Zelda title, where it's trial by fire.
Trial by fire.
It's a survival game, so we're not going to tell you how to survive, because then the game will be gone.
Defeats the purpose. I super duper love that little point. And something I wanted to ask about before, quests. I had only heard about that in passing. Could you perhaps give an example of what you guys are considering for that?
So, for instance, if we incorporated the knights, it would be almost a bounty kind of system. Ooh. So, I'm not quite sure the complete logistics of it right now, but you'd literally go up to, say, a sheriff type of NPC, and he'd be like, oh, there's bandits known to be around the areas of Skinfirth. They look like this, and then you go and you'll cut his head off and you bring it back, and they'll give you some XP and a bit of gold. So that's kind of, we want to try and avoid fetch quest, but at the same time, the game almost suits fetch quest in a way. It's a tough answer to
honestly,
tough question to answer.
That's the thing. In this game, I'll probably get some hate for this. I don't feel like fetch quests would be a bad thing, because so much comes along with the fetch element in a game like this, because there's a possibility there could be other players out there, waiting for people to go out, or you might get attacked by a wolf or something or other, or you might find some buried treasure or some crap, a cave. So I don't know.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. I might be talking out my ass.
Fetch quests for me, they can be repetitious because you know what's coming. I feel like we've done quite a big job on procedurally generating events, and obviously you shed other players. It's a multiplayer setting, so you never know what could happen. So we're hoping we could just throw some stuff in the mix and keep that stuff quite fresh.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's loads. It seems like you guys are planning loads of really cool stuff, and I cannot wait to see it. And I wanted to expound a little bit on you and the team's philosophy in general. I know you said that you guys don't want one guy to be the best class. But is your vision in the long term to be that every class has its role, every class has a purpose. Is that the goal?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We started out the game being very sandboxy, almost
Mm-hmm.
too much. Like you could access as much as you want as quickly as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just almost like the Dark RP, Gary's mod. Was very popular because it was just literally you can pretend who you want to be. I want to be a hobo, and I do this. Um, that actually made us suffer in terms of playtime. The player didn't have any drive, so we do want to keep like the professions to have their own abilities and always be relevant. But at the same time, we do need some end game goals. Like you do want to work towards a blacksmith. You
Mm-hmm.
want to make the player work for it. And then when they get there, it's such a big win. So we've kind of dialed back a little bit on making everything free and available. And that's become our new philosophy. If it's cool, the player needs to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and that's the same thing with most survival games. Um, but at the same time, if the classes play off each other, we level up quicker because of that. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, we still want to make the player's behavior reference in the class they're playing. So if you are a loner, you can be an outlaw, and you can go around and you can just terrify people. But if you want to work with each other and level up quicker, I'll be a knight, you'll be a blacksmith, I'll make you armor. Was when it was sandboxy, where we're having loads of blacksmiths run around in full plate with the best hammers, smashing knights' heads in.
Yeah.
That's backwards. That's not really how.
Yeah.
Even though it was up to the player, it's not how we envisioned it. So we ended up, dialing back the blacksmith's combat ability, making the knight a little bit more efficient, and then making the blacksmith more of just a soul crafter.
Mm-hmm.
Before the blacksmith had tons of hammer weapon skills, and he was basically just outclassing every single class because he can make the hammer, he can make his armor, and he can just smash anyone's head in. So basically now we're kind of making the classes have their weaknesses and we make it not too sandbox so that you have to work for the class you want to be.
Yeah, that sounds very logical. So, moving past the classes, the professions, just a little bit, I want to talk about housing and like how the players can kind of set up their own place. I really, really like the housing system currently. Hope I'll probably make a video on it specifically in the future. But I like the way you guys have it be kind of a hierarchical system where you got to build this and then you have it in your house and et cetera, et cetera. But at the moment, as I mentioned before, housing is currently limited to just these player houses that are surrounded by fences outside of cities. And that's really cool, but for those people who might want to live inside a fortress or inside a city or a village, etc., what do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that could be a possibility in the future, living inside the capital or a fort or something?
I like to think that we're all on the same wavelength without even discussing it, because we like to think there's a test bed for what happens if that house that you buy is a castle or is a town that you're responsible for. It literally is an expandable system. That's what it started off as. We want to build a system that we could make it 5 times larger. But right now we want to use it as a test bed and see how players behave. And I think the tests are going pretty well. Like I feel like some other people get jealous. They want it. They might try to break in. And that, for me, fits really well with something like a castle. If someone buys a castle and has a nation of NPCs and players, people are going to get jelly or jealous.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to break it down and take it. So castles is definitely something that we're looking into and currently already started working on, but can't necessarily give you a time frame. But in terms of the upgrading system for the houses, it's literally going to be it's going to be echoed in the castles, but it'll be instead of building a bench, it'll be like a castle wall, and stuff like that. Instead of buying one bed, you're buying dorms for your soldiers. So it's very, like I said, it's a very extendable system, and it's something that we're always going to build on top of to see what sort of behavior players do and refine it.
Awesome. Yeah, just keeping up with the systems, refining them, and making them something really awesome. That seems to be a great goal.
Yeah.
So it seems like you guys are looking at housing in a very nice light. And now I'm going to move a little bit more into kind of the controversial end of things. I know we compared your game to other games, but now we're going to talk about your game's kind of health as a whole. And we were talking a little bit before this interview about how, like, I love the game. Me and Frosty adore the game. We think it's got so much potential, but the player base is just, it's not as big as it once was, and that's very disheartening to a lot of people. And there's a lot of negative feedback on Steam. The only reason for which seems to be the fact that the game is quote unquote dead, which it isn't actually dead. There's still a good number of players, but it's certainly not as the place it once was. What do you have to say to these people who are like bad mouthing your game, like, oh, it's a dead game, don't buy it, get your money back? What do you guys have to say to that?
I mean, it's an interesting paradox, isn't it? People don't buy the game because they're told by players who own the game that it's dead. So if they didn't say that, then if they would have bought it, then it wouldn't be dead. But yeah, that's an interesting paradox, and I don't know if it's true or not with our game. Personally, all feedback is great. We read everything, especially in the Steam reviews, and people do use that to their best ability. You know, they'll complain about things that are personal to them and make a negative review, so we'd read it. But that's absolutely fine. It's free speech. But in terms of like saying the game's dead, for me, we've actually had the highest concurrent player count in this month since launch. Nice. So, and that's quite an incredible feat. We've gone from next to nothing back up again. So as if the game's only just come out. That's incredible. It's definitely not on the same lines as like Ark. You know, we're not pulling in 70,000 people every day. But for me, it's kind of a blessing in disguise. You know, we have a lot to offer without a full server. You know, we have NPCs and, you know, house upgrade systems and all that kind of stuff. But having the current player count is actually a great test bed for, you know, features and updates. So, you know, there's less noise, so we can actually hear the individual, what they think of a certain system. And if we had hundreds of thousands of people buying the game right now, all negative reviewing it and just giving us nothing but horrendous amount of bugs, it'd almost bury the game in its own crap. So it's like, yeah, it's a tough one. It is a blessing in disguise, but financially it's not great. But we are early access, and we do have another chance when the game's done to grow the player base exponentially. So if right now we're happy with the community we have and the feedback, and when the game's finished, I'm sure those people that say it's dead will hopefully jump back in.
Yeah, maybe give it another shot.
Yeah.
And actually, to add something to that, perhaps, is that just from my own experience, like even if there is only 5 or 6 people in a server, which is, as it is, at peak hours, it's a rare occurrence. But even if so, that's still really cool to me, because if I find someone just walking down the road, that interaction, me and that person, that is an infinite number of interactions. And that's so cool to me. And in a lot of other survival games, like in Life is Feudal, it's like, oh, hey, you want to go chop wood or go do a thing? And like, blah, blah, blah. In your game, it's like, hey, I've never been to this place on the map. You want to go there? That's such a cool thing.
Yeah, or pickpocket him.
Or pickpocket him if you're a bandit. Hey.
Yeah.
It's on your provocation.
Yeah, like I exactly feel it. I mean, when we started the design philosophy for the game, we can't actually thought, like, Elder Scrolls Online wasn't out yet when this game was on paper. And we thought, like, you know, what would Skyrim be like if other players were just running around? You know, it'd be co-op, but at the same time, what happens if you just kill another player in Skyrim? And that's kind of like fits the game quite well at the moment, because when you see another hero, you know, it's quite a big deal. You know, it's like coming across and seeing another Dragonborn.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, that's so cool. You know, you're not another NPC. You're a big deal. Especially when you start reaching knight and blacksmith. I'm hoping that people will be in awe of these professions. So yeah, even though the player count's not great, it does actually help to add on to that effect where you find another hero character, another player running around who really sticks out and adds so much more to your gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bed of experiences. That's the way I think about it. So talked about that. We talked a little bit about how you guys are looking at basically player retention and gaining new players in the future. You guys are hoping that testing stuff and just making the game a bit more of a fuller experience is going to help. I absolutely agree. Now, I just, as we get to the end of this, I know the game is currently still in beta, as I've said a couple of times. Oh yeah, disclaimer. I know this is the end of the video, not the beginning, but this game is a beta, guys.
Yeah.
It's still in early access. I'll make sure that's in the description. But something that I have to ask, because I know plenty of people are going to have this concern, and plenty of games do this. and that is never come out of early access. And it seems the way you talk about the game that you guys are planning to release this at some point. But can you tell us anything about the whereabouts of that point? How close that may be, or far?
So I like to think we used early access properly.
Mm.
We are not like, we have all the very intention to come out of it. But at the same time, we're not going to abuse it and leave the game in early access forever, just so we can have a chance at selling the game again. So we are going to come out of it. Once we've nailed that whole kind of kingdoms feel, like you can buy a castle, own it, and fight other players for it.
Yeah.
I feel like we'll be very close to a release after that, because that's the kind of infinite end game that we want players to have. Definitely more like months rather than years.
Okay.
But yeah, when you see that update drop, and you'll know the update because we'll push it really hard, you'll be like, oh, this game is starting to feel very close to the end.
Yes.
And you'll know because you've been playing it forever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see myself ever stop playing this game in the near future.
Yeah.
On that actually topic, while we're talking about updates, how often, for those of you viewers who don't keep track of this game, how often do you guys generally release an update or a hotfix or a patch to this game?
So currently we're on a 2-week cycle, but these sort of updates are kind of like bugs and exploit fixes and smaller features. The larger updates, like the castle one, for instance, would be like every other month, more like. But they'll kind of, there always will be an update every 2 weeks, and we would like to guarantee that in the near future as well.
Nice. That's a fantastic cycle that a lot of games, early access or no, don't adhere to. So that's really good to hear. And what kind of stuff, again, while we're on the topic of updates, what kind of stuff can we expect to see maybe in the next couple of weeks in terms of development? Anything really cool coming on the horizon? You can.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some ideas for new utilities that we've already started designing. For instance, like a repairing station. At the moment, only profession who's responsible for repairing items such as swords and armor.
Yeah.
We want to offer another opportunity to players to repair their gear, and that is kind of like a repairing station. It will be way more expensive and harder work to repair your gear, obviously to not make the blacksmith void, but at the same time, it'll give a knight an option. You know, if the only blacksmith on the server is a complete asshole and doesn't want to work with you, then you can repair your sword and get back into the fight.
Right.
Also, a dyeing station. Like, we know customization is a big deal in this game. It's all about cosmetics. It's all about looking cool.
Yeah.
So we want to offer players like a very large range of ways to customize their looks. So that's a dyeing station kind of utility. So that's a couple of guys, like smaller updates that we're thinking of that might fit in with the 2-week cycles. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's really cool stuff. Yeah, I had not considered any of that. And I know you guys have done like little things in the past, such as Tavern Tuesdays and the like. Is there anything like that coming up in the near or far future that you want to let loose about now? Or just anything at all in that vein?
Yeah. Our Steam traffic's actually quite high in terms of the discussion board. And we want to help that. So we're looking into creating a new thread of like what you're working on thread kind of thing. And it's something that we're going to try and update very regularly with nice screenshots, showing you every feature that we're currently working on in the office. We want to kind of maybe update that very often, like almost like every 3 days. It's not necessarily an event, but it's something that the player can go to and go, oh, what's coming soon? I would love to see what you guys are working on. And then this is a place you can go to, and you can like directly talk to us and give us direct feedback before the feature's even in. So more developer talks. We've already got some things lined up with other developers, and we want to discuss, what makes a survival game great, and we can all just like learn from each other. So that sort of stuff soon.
Yeah.
But we're looking at ways of like doing it on Twitch and stuff like that, so people can join in the conversation. It's not just developers that create survival games; it's the community. So everyone's point is valid.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of things that we're thinking of right now.
Okay. Awesome. So little things. I'll make sure to link the games. Obviously, the game's Steam page, the Steam forums, and a couple other resources for you guys to check out, those of you who are curious about the game. And I believe that is everything that I have for today. I think we have gotten a lot out the door here, and that's really, really good to hear. This game has so much potential, as I said before. And I know that a lot of people say that, like, this game has so much potential, but at the same time, if you buy it right now and you play it, it's so much fun. Like, I don't have to sit here and say, all right, the game will be great in a month or 2 months, because it's great now, but it's getting better, even better. As I get off my soapbox, would you like to say any closing remarks, Cameron?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, big thanks to everyone who's reviewed the game, positive or negatively. All feedback's valid. We're listening to you. I like to think we play things a bit differently here at Small Impact Games. We do stay very active. We're always online. We're always talking to people. That you take that faith in us and spend some of your hard-earned cash on it as it is currently, because like has been said already, there is some stuff to be offered in the game, way more than hopefully 40 hours. And for the $10 to $20 range, that's pretty good. So I'm hoping that you can invest in us.
Yeah.
See how you feel. Get your friends in. The game plays so well with others.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, if you got a clan, just bring them all in. You'll love it.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of, like, Reign of Kings people. Like, where are you? Like, 400,000 people own that game, and there's only 2,000 of you playing it. Come on over. Like,
yeah.
let's have a big old party.
Bloody party.
I love Reign of Kings. I'm not trying to steal their people, but I like to think we offer something slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something that anyone who plays survival games should be open to. Is just a different experience, and this game absolutely provides that. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, certainly. As I lavish more and more support on Cameron, I got to stop. He'll explode. One of us will. So I'll go ahead and close that here, guys. Thank you very much for watching and for listening to Cameron. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your guys' busy schedule. I know you guys are working super hard on the game, so I sincerely appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone who watched does as well.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for taking your time out.
Hey, I could have been doing a German exam, and by could have, I mean I'd really rather not have been doing. So good use of my time. No. Thanks very much for watching. As always, have a grand day, everyone. Thank you again, Cameron, and we shall see you, kind people, next time. As always, check out those links in the description. If you're interested in the game, I highly recommend checking it out. Check it out with a friend. Just give it a look-see. It's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. One way or the other. And that is all, folks. See you guys next time.